Traffic slows to a crawl. Every car ahead of you cranes toward the same spot on the road. You tell yourself not to look, but the real answer is far stranger than simple curiosity. You look anyway. Almost everyone does. And, for decades, scientists assumed this meant something was wrong with you. It doesn't. What's actually happening is far older and far more useful than anyone expected. Start with the obvious question. Why would your brain, of all things, want to see something horrible? Wouldn't evolution favor the opposite? Wouldn't survival mean avoiding gore, avoiding danger, avoiding anything that might disturb you? Here's the twist. Avoiding danger and studying danger are not the same instinct. One keeps you safe in the moment. The other keeps you safe the next time. Researcher Coltan Scrivner has spent years studying what he calls morbid curiosity, the pull toward frightening or disturbing content. His work found something unexpected. People who score high on morbid curiosity aren't more violent, or more disturbed, or more broken than anyone else. They're often more prepared. Their brains are gathering information about threat, danger, and how bodies fail long before they might ever need it. Think about it this way. If you'd never seen what a predator attack looks like, would you recognize the warning signs before it happened to you? Your ancestors didn't have textbooks. They didn't have safety videos or emergency drills. What they had was each other's misfortune. Watching someone else fall from a cliff, get bitten by a snake, or freeze to death in a storm wasn't entertainment for them. It was data. Free, uncomfortable, unforgettable data. This is why your eyes drift toward the wreck on the highway. Some ancient part of your mind is asking a simple question. What happened here? And how do I make sure it doesn't happen to me? Consider what this looked like for most of human history. A hunting party returns with one fewer member than it left with. The survivors don't hide the details. They repeat them, again and again, around the fire late into the night. Every listener leans in. Nobody covers their ears. The story of exactly how someone died was, for tens of thousands of years, some of the most valuable information a person could receive, because it might one day save their life. There's a second force at work, too, one that's even older than curiosity. Psychologist Roy Baumeister spent years reviewing decades of research on how people respond to good and bad information. His conclusion became famous in psychology circles. Bad is stronger than good. Across nearly every domain tested, from memory to attention to emotion, negative events left a deeper mark than positive ones of equal size. Why would your brain be built this way? Because the cost of ignoring a threat is not symmetrical with the cost of ignoring a reward. Miss a piece of good news, and tomorrow brings another chance. Miss a warning sign, a predator, a collapsing branch, and there may not be a tomorrow at all. Your attention evolved to weigh these two outcomes very differently, and it still does, every single day, whether you're scrolling past a headline or slowing down near flashing lights on the highway. Notice how this plays out in your own memory. You can probably recall an embarrassing mistake from 10 years ago in vivid detail. Can you recall a pleasant, ordinary Tuesday from the same year with anywhere near the same clarity? Almost nobody can. Baumeister's research suggests this isn't a personal flaw. It's the software working exactly as intended, prioritizing the information most likely to keep you alive over the information that simply made you feel good. Now picture your ancestors gathered around a fire once more. Someone returns from a hunt gone wrong, describing exactly what happened. Every detail matters: the direction the animal charged, the sound it made, the mistake that led to injury. Nobody looks away from this story. Nobody asks the storyteller to skip the frightening part. The frightening part is the entire point. That impulse never left you. It just changed its shape. Psychologist Paul Rozin, known for decades of research into disgust, found that humans are drawn to examine exactly the things that disgust or frighten them most, almost as if some dizzy internal alarm insists on double-checking the danger before moving on. He described disgust and fascination as strangely intertwined, pulling in opposite directions at once. You recoil and you lean in the very same breath. Have you ever noticed that, right after something startles you, your first instinct is to look again? That second look isn't weakness, it's verification. Your brain isn't fully satisfied with a single glance. It wants confirmation. It wants to update its internal map of the world, marking exactly where danger lives, so it can steer you around it next time. Think about how a child touches a hot stove. Once, almost never twice. But notice what happens in between those two moments. The child doesn't just flinch away and forget. The child often looks back at the stove, studies it, sometimes even reaches toward it again, more cautiously this time. That's not defiance. That's the same verification instinct, built into you from the very beginning, long before you ever slowed down near a car wreck. This explains something else too. Why horror movies exist, why true crime podcasts dominate every chart, why you slow down just slightly, passing an accident on the road, even when you know you shouldn't. None of this is a modern flaw bolted onto an otherwise rational mind. It's an ancient survival mechanism, running exactly as designed, just with far less actual danger around to justify it. Consider how strange your environment has become compared to the one your instincts were built for. For most of human history, danger was immediate, physical, and rare enough that any information about it was precious. Today, you're surrounded by depictions of danger constantly, news alerts, streaming thrillers, videos of disasters from the other side of the planet. Your ancient alarm system fires just as intensely for a video on your phone as it once fired for a real threat outside your cave. Your brain hasn't caught up to the difference. It still treats vivid, frightening information as urgently relevant, even when it changes nothing about your actual safety. A headline about a disaster 1,000 miles away can spike your heart rate exactly as if the danger were standing in your own doorway. Your nervous system has no built-in sense of distance. It only knows vivid or not vivid, threatening or safe. This mismatch shows up in ways you might not expect. Studies on media consumption have repeatedly found that people who watch more frightening news coverage tend to overestimate their personal risk of the very events they're watching, even when those events are statistically rare. Someone watching hours of coverage about a plane crash on the other side of the world can end up more afraid of flying than someone who never saw the footage at all, despite the actual odds not changing by a single decimal point. Your instincts were built for a world where seeing something meant it was close. They were never built for a world where a screen can show you anything, from anywhere, at any hour of the day. Think about what your ancestors would have made of this. To them, secondhand information about danger almost always meant nearby danger. If someone described a predator, that predator was likely still in the area. Reacting strongly to any vivid description of harm was not paranoia. It was correctly calibrated fear for the environment they actually lived in. You inherited that same calibration. You just live somewhere it no longer fits. So what do you do with the mind that's wired to stare? You can't switch off morbid curiosity, and you probably shouldn't try. Scrivner's research suggests that people who engage with frightening content in controlled ways, like horror films or true crime stories, often process real-world anxiety more effectively afterward. It's a kind of rehearsal, a safe simulation of danger that trains your nervous system without any actual risk attached. In fact, some of his studies found that people who sought out frightening entertainment during genuinely stressful periods, including global crises, reported feeling more psychologically prepared, not less. But there's a difference between processing fear and marinating in it. Endless doom scrolling doesn't give your ancient alarm system the resolution it's looking for. It just keeps the alarm ringing, feeding it fragment after fragment of threat with no final answer, no lesson learned, no story completed. A campfire story has an ending. An infinite scroll does not. Next time you catch yourself slowing down to look or clicking on something you know will unsettle you, pause for a moment before judging yourself for it. Ask what your mind is actually trying to do. It isn't broken. It isn't morbid in some shameful sense. It's doing exactly what kept your ancestors alive long enough to have descendants at all. Somewhere back through thousands of generations, someone survived because they paid attention to exactly the thing everyone else wanted to turn away from. They studied the wreckage. They remembered the warning. And that memory, passed down through instinct rather than words, is still steering your eyes today. Traffic slows to a crawl. You look. And now, you finally understand why you always will.